Okie dokes, let's look at color. So you can add color to your art. There are so many ways. Mixed media on wood, mixed media with pyrography is very, very common, and lots of people love to add color to their art. Like I started with, there's so many different ways you can do it. Maybe you have some of these left over from like school, or maybe your kids have some of these or whatever. There are definitely things that are more expensive than others, like gel sticks are kind of expensive, but acrylic paint is relatively inexpensive. It's like $1 for a thing at Michael's or Walmart, 50 cents for one or something, you know? So there's a lot of accessibility here. You can really go ham and spend a lot of money with a lot of different kinds of color, or you might just be happy with like just your color pencils or whatever. So feel free to experiment with this, but I do just want to kind of gently introduce you to them. All right, so number one is acrylic paint. You can grab just a generic paintbrush and you can either paint directly on the wood, or if you have a little palette off to the side, you can mix your paints. You can add a little bit of water to your acrylic paints to water them down. That makes them a little bit more like watercolors and easily blendable on the wood. So acrylic is a really cheap, awesome, accessible option because it's in stores like all over the place. So anyway, acrylic. Next is gouache. Gouache is one of my favorites. It's one of my personal favorites. Gouache is like the love child between watercolors and acrylic paints. It has the properties of both. Gouache usually comes in tubes like this. It also comes in like, they look like pudding cups, like snackable pudding cups, but they're gouache paints and they have a little lid and you peel them off and like they're in these little jelly cups. Those are cool, but they're not resealable. But anyway, I like the ones from Arteza that come in these tubes. You can water them down and use them like watercolors, or you can use them straight out of the tube and it'll be a lot thicker, much more similar to acrylic. Watercolors, there's all different kinds of watercolors. I really love my handmade watercolors, and I get, you know, chrome and micas and color changing watercolors and super glittery ones and then matte colored ones and all sorts of stuff, right? I love handmade watercolors. That's just one of my favorites, and that's what you'll see in a lot of my art. Then you have like color pencils. We can get into color pencils. You can get Prismacolor pencils to add color to your art. Prismacolors are very vibrant. You can do just like plain grade school elementary Crayola colored pencils and color on the wood. You can do, oh, this is another Crayola. Let's see, you can do watercolor pencils. This is watercolor, but in pencil format. The way you could use this is you can color directly on the wood and then get a wet paintbrush and dab the color and it'll kind of blend it together to look like watercolors. Or you can actually dip your pencil in water and then color directly on the wood and it'll blend that way too. You can use things like Sharpie, right? People use Sharpie all the time because they're very vibrant. You can do oil pastels. I am not a huge pastel fan, but a lot of people use them. There's things like brush pens. So this is like a calligraphy brush pen. Has pretty good coverage. Yeah, anyway, those are fun. I have these fun like Crayola paint marker thingies. They're glitter. They're a little old. This one's a little old, but that gives like a fun glitter. So that's an option. There are these gel sticks. They're kind of like oil pastels and gel mixed together. They're fun, they're easily blendable, but they are a little tricky to get a finish on without like smudging them, right? They can smudge pretty easily. You can do markers. So we looked at Sharpie. This is just like a cheap little sketching marker that came in a 12 pack from the craft store. You can look at like the Copic markers. This is a Michael's brand, but they're pretty rich and have really vibrant color. You can color in that way. There are, of course, just your typical Crayola. Oh, look how old it is. Oh my gosh. It's like all crusty. Oh, buddy, I'm sorry. Anyway, you can use Crayola markers. Here I have a different kind of marker to color in your art. And then this is a paint marker, Artistro paint marker pen. I don't know if you can tell, but I actually don't like these. They clump up very easily, and they have good coverage, but they are so finicky to use. Sometimes they will splatter on your wood and not give you a consistent color, or they will splatter and get places that you don't want the paint. And so if you're working on an unsanded piece of wood, those scratches from the piece of wood will literally make the paint splatter as you drag it or as you color. And then a lot of the times the little pumping mechanism on the inside of the pen will not work right, and if you go to like pump it on the wood, it'll flood. So I cannot tell you how many times I did that when I first got these, and that's why I was like, no, because if you want to play it safe, shake the marker and pump it on like scrap paper and then go to the wood, but don't try to like color an area and pump it. Of course, this one is actually working right now, but my red gunked up and then would just like, I call it like bleeding. Like it would just bleed all over my piece of wood, and it ruined my piece. My black one did that too. I threw the black one away. Anyway, I don't like them, but a lot of people use them. And then of course you have like your watercolor brush pens. So this is just an Arteza one. You can dip this in water just a little bit, get a little bit of water, color onto the wood. You can color directly with no water at all. It's dry, but it gives you a really deep, vibrant color. So this is good for coloring in little areas. Or you could get a wet paintbrush and get the wood wet, and then get one of these and paint on the wet wood. Here, let me like show you that real quick. Like if you had a paintbrush, you know, you bring your marker over and you can get a nice, cool, blendable watercolor effect going on. And then that'll dry and you can do other things to it. You know, if you want to blend it out more, obviously you should be using a brush, but I'm just using my fingers. So anyway, the world's your oyster. There are so many different kinds of ways to add color to your art. There is no one way that is like right or wrong or better or worse. It literally just comes down to preference and what you already have or what you're willing to spend the money on. Have fun, go to town. If you have any questions about adding color, let me know. I add a ton of color to my art, so I'm really familiar with a lot of the different mediums and stuff. So feel free to always reach out to me, DM me, shoot me an email, whatever. Send me a picture of whatever it is you're working on or you have questions about. I'm always here for you. Yeah, and I hope that this one was really helpful for you.